Chitodelek, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this afternoon's CuriosiTEA, a conversation with artist Buchang Nugbya. And it's my opportunity to welcome you first with a little bit of introduction to how we arrived at today's conversation. Hopefully, you have each had the opportunity to see these two beautiful paintings on display in the galleries, and you might remember them from a year ago when they were briefly on display. It's what occurred before you saw them and since you last saw them that I want to fill in so that you can have some context for the conversation that's about to unfold. Okay, so these two images take us back approximately a year ago when the paintings arrived here to the museum. As you may be aware, they were commissioned in honor of the retirement of Bonnie Speed, our last director of the museum of almost 20 years. With about a year of anticipation, we were thrilled when the objects arrived, and when we uncrated them, we discovered that the crate had suffered during shipment, and that the paintings, which had been rolled, as you see in the left-hand image, had crushed to one end of the crate. And when the paintings hit that end of the crate, a number of ripples and wrinkles developed in the objects, and in my role as head of conservation, this was scary. We had these two beautiful new paintings that we were ready to get up in the galleries, and we found that they were wrinkled and had a number of small paint losses associated. So with this waiting for us, Ella Andrews, who you will meet momentarily, had just arrived here to the museum, and she jumped right on board with the project of how we would ready these paintings to go on view. You'll see in this detail that as the paintings were crumpled, a lot of paint became fragile in the wrinkling, and inside the circle you see losses to the beautifully delicate detail on the surface. So we had wrinkles and we had paint losses to deal with. These are things that we as conservators are somewhat used to, but seeing them on a brand new set of works of art was very disheartening. And knowing that we had a limited amount of time to get them ready to put on display, we were also confronted with the challenge of the limits of what we knew how to do. So we started as conservators do, very tentatively. And Ella and Brittany Deneen, who works also in the lab, spent many hours with the paintings in a side gallery, flattening little sections, getting the wrinkles to relax slowly by introducing a little bit of humidity and applying a little bit of weight. We got them flatter, not flat, flatter. And we put them on view in the galleries for about 6 months. And then this shows you how much flatter we were able to get them. You can see the comparison of the wrinkles to the more relaxed bulges. But what you see is that there are still paint losses associated with the surface, and that this was as far as our conservation treatment could carry us. So once the paintings came down from the gallery after about 6 months, we brought them to the lab, and here you see Buchang and Geshe Lobsang Tinzinegi in the conservation laboratory downstairs. They visited with us last April, and together we plotted a course of action that would allow the paintings to be more flat, more stable, and more complete. We had run up against the limits of what we as conservators could take on, and we needed the expertise of the artist. And so we were thrilled that Buchang gave us not only his generous time and expertise, but also permission to work alongside him on this project. And so Ella and Brittany and I flattened the paintings again, and we got them flat this time. And then Buchang came back, and he worked with us in the gallery, completing missing elements of the painting and addressing all those little tiny losses that I'd shown you in a detail. We had such a wonderful collaboration, learning from and with him, that we wanted to bring that conversation to you to have the opportunity to hear about his work. And so this afternoon, we will have in conversation the artist, Buchang Nugbya, who is an accomplished painter born in Tibet and currently residing in New York. For more than a decade, he painted Thangkas and other sacred images for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. His work is represented in the collection of the Rubin Museum, and he's currently carrying out a large-scale decorative program for the Dalai Lama Library and Learning Center in Ithaca, New York. Ella Andrews is an objects conservator who is currently the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation in the Parsons Lab here at the Carlos Museum. She holds a master's degree in conservation from the University College London and a BA in anthropology from University of North Carolina in Charlotte. In addition to her work in museum labs, Ella has been active on archaeological sites. So today's conversation will allow them to discuss not only, in particular, Buchang's work that brought him to us and to the completion of these paintings. And I leave for you to see that in addition to touching up the paintings as from the damage that they had sustained, in this example, you can see highlighted elements that were identified through his visit as missing, and that he, in consult with the original artist, the two together collaboratively completed this image. And so we're looking forward to hearing from the two of them about this project and particularly about Buchang's work. So Ella, I will bring up that next presentation.
Thank you, Renee, for that lovely introduction. Buchang, we're so happy to have you here, especially during Tibet Week.
Samala Tishtele Shuani, and you sing Chelenagache and Chasama, Samal Pebra, Samal Tishi. So, a warm welcome to all of you. A very good afternoon to guests here and also people who work at the museum. Anga Shayagi Durim Tinova Kasri. Uma say Mazo Pevegi Thangka Chigi Nimbe Channel Kasri. Anga Pajotilic and Toy Samrodi Angoneg Kigan in Boxing in Jail. So in a colon Kiku Jik Ane Su Jik Murab Jaya Samlota Jikani Chipsan Jaya Samro Mavje Pajoti Jaladi Jikpa Yawachi Uyadi and the Pebe Shiga as a Gigans of Lobster in the Chese Tomating Colon Jigic Tony Chip. So before I go into the actual process of the reconstruction or the process, I would like to briefly mention the kind of motivation that we hold, as an artist, as a Thangka painter, and we are, advised or guided by our teachers to have this motivation always to, think about the other, to, engage, in whatever activity, right? Always engage with the positive motivation, a motivation to help others. And this has been my practice. So, whenever I do a project, I have this motivation to benefit the other. I'm not motivated by the fee that I'll get, but my primary motivation is to help others. And that has been the tradition in which, I grew up. Because any Hagis Gurim de Ara Chung do Nega and that Casre, her Nanglola, Casre, that Yami Lebecella, her Shovecella, Anzola, Combamang which told in any dinner buried tomato. That today in the Tanzan Yamso Chiang Casre, Kubabje Round, and Kubabdi Raedi. Casa to the Yapcha, but down the Kangan Katuji Kubabja Joshua, and the Rabbit Jurim Jogging shop. That peasant of the Pernala, that her show is in the Dojo. Indeed, Tanzan Yamsuche, Kubabra, so sort of Muji Raja, any Castle, Cassi, daily your own share, Conans of get down, and your own. So swag things that you probably use and any care and show it once and the so that the chick cussing on so young she soon changed chick sedan jola in this So when I was first contacted and asked to come down and work on these two Thangkas, I drew sort of courage and confidence from my experience of doing reconstruction works back when I was in Tibet.
as many of you know, and as you can see from the exhibits here, culturally, Tibet underwent a huge destruction after the invasion of Chinese, and many of our monasteries were destroyed and damaged. And although the time was difficult, it also offered opportunity for me to engage in some cultural conservation and preservation work. So as you can see in these images here, these are works that I did while I was in Tibet, reconstructing the murals and paintings inside temple. And these were done in a traditional sort of using traditional practices and methods.
이 대답을 통해서 딜해석이 중앙이다. 행정학 중앙이다.
And so this picture is taken inside Buchang temple in Lhasa, considered as the most sacred temple inside Tibet. So we are doing reconstructive work here. So these are all from Buchang temple.
디데자와진 보달라도 가서갔어요. 인행을 빠르 상화진내가 대단 두개도 없습니다.
So similarly, he has also worked in other temples and monasteries, including the Potala Palace.
아마 될었다. 탕가서가 영거에 대해 계시 근데 로산 덴질라기 아니 계시 근질라가 선체 아니마 저와트 쇼스바 이제 근질라 주체 아니 저와나 안테네 계시 로스 덴질라 다 커머시제 아니 야영로서 아마데 영메도 영니 통마 야 니마 팅마직 영로지 소미 나 영 다가서 당가디 간데 있는 녀라 소수 시행거 보라 gebjaka리 땅이면 이 간데지 있는 이 나라가 가르간 지금은 이게 사실 상담나와 지금 아주 거부위 인자는 야 축지 용맹 당무도 뭐.
So initially when Geshe Lobsang La contacted him through Geshe Kwinchen La and asking about the possibility of collaborating on this work, he wanted to come down and look at the painting, the work, and see what kind of reconstructions are needed. So for that, he made a short trip to Atlanta initially.
이 지당이 다 남주 탕가 지당 subject 통마 사실 탕가디 최저 단행은 정말 식수시에 되죠. 사실 먼저 지금 최저 단위 최저 그치 인도 최저 단위 조단죠. 이만 당고 라고 하자고 식수시에 지킨다. 이제 이 가슴 통화편에 좀선 남비에 럼내야 되는데 당 신의 난교 인자 아니 가둘 수 없는 거.
So generally, reconstructing Thangka paintings involves a ritual of initially sort of disbanding the Thangka, because when Thangka is drawn, after Thangka is drawn, it will be consecrated through a ritual performance. And this kind of involves the understanding of sort of invoking the deity, whichever deity the Thangka represents, to sort of be part of the Thangka. And therefore, when reconstruction work is done, initially, you ask the deity to sort of temporarily leave the Thangka, so that the works can be done on that. But these two Thangkas have not undergone that process, and as such, that ritual need not. That was not needed. So therefore, he right away engaged in the reconstruction work.
네, 이제 아니 야래 테마 당고들에 있는 그란저가 sharing과 만족 tradition 직가스니다. 소셜 리쇼탄 직 마마 록선탄 소당이 인데 인데 요스 가스 어디 게임이지 어디요 어디게다 아니 저거 추적도 추에다 지금 뭐 여러 개 권한도 당원에 지금 남는 시위가 이 거기에 난 그런 한 것까지 들어있어야 있어.
So the actual process in our traditional practice, when Thangka is restored, we use ironing, humidifying the Thangka and so on. So all these steps were discussed, and perhaps they might have been helpful in restoring part of that.
이래서 온라인 because that 권한으로 처음도 that during 처음도 처음 권한으로 처음 그 나라 그래서 and from possible 이게 다다 되게 처음다 되게 찾아서 직거스 마음이 직도다간 통인 수수 이나 한 가지는 또 다르가 그들을 찾아내는 때 찾아 다처럼이 그래서 주시다 되게 찾아온 거 왜 지금 체증이 나와서 빠르게 있다는 거 내가 빠르 좀 딱 이제 단선 그 가슴에 즉 산세에 대한 상황만 것당 법 베이지다 딱 직다까지 조금의 change 그거에 대한 수시다 즉 다가스를 수시에 대한 직야 야 직주제는 상호가 빠르게 편버져서 그 디서 가스를 상황만 것당 안 되는 제재
So even though the museum has arranged colors that he could use, he realized that the colors would not go with that Thangka, with that painting. So he took a number of pictures, went back to New York, and did some research, did a lot of thinking of how to put together the colors, the pigments, and so on.
아니, 걔네 가서 직다 가서 사실 아무 내가 고쳐주는 멜람으로 시작해서 아니 가서 뒤준데 군저로 사실 이제다 가서 쇼에 인도에서는 멜람 잡아도 돈이 선되게 된 직 가서 다 내다 직 인사를 가서 무슨데 대화도 즐거운 주에 직 인사 선되게 직 람로로 야구 쇼치 총수 야래는 수시단서 대당데 딱다 두고요. 가슴이 한국어에서 그냥 따요 뭐. 미네 나오가 빠르는 단 등지 쳐다진 서고. 상황은 내내도 있잖아요. 직진이 이제 아시오 밑달래면 좀 내가
So he put together this the colors and then came down here and then started working, and all the color matched perfectly, and he's thinking it might be because of initially because of his doing making a Thangka or doing a reconstructive work for him is a spiritual practice, and as such initially the motivation is there, and also you go to refuge to the deity that the Thangka represents, and so on. And it could be some karmic connection that must be there. So these are sort of difficult to describe, but for some serendipitous sort of reasons, all the colors that he had prepared worked perfectly on these two scrolls.
아니 아야레 다 야레베 제가 안 탕가 대행이 다 때문에 권한성 내진 와를 띵set다 예 통되잖아 안 제당이 예저로 망치에서 권한도 띵set던 것이 통만 안 되던 시 아니 권한 대에 내지 나요 아니 또 차저다 직시 거저인데 이제 마무리 있어 시 거저 전수 다 답지티도 권한도 저보다 답지티도 던져 상어봐 딱 그냥 그때는 책에 있는 이게 찾아 이치하는 것이고요. 아무랑 진짜 이제 추측이 주기셔가 오게 되는 거. 오게 나왔다 생각하는 힘도. 제가 먼저 제간다. 그 스타스는 다 근데 괜찮은 쇼미 여러 서투에 다시 다운
So when he came down to do the actual reconstruction, a lot of reconstruction work has already been done. The Thangka was looking two Thangkas were looking much better. But then, of course, there were those paintings that had been removed, and some at the corner, some wrinkles. So he used traditional tools to remove those wrinkles, iron out those wrinkles, and fill the paintings and reconstruct it that way.
And ratio, ratio ajota da jiksa keda diksa the tradition that the starting on server and give the division of conserve water. Chasang survey, but again check
and because these Thangkas are painted on canvas, and when wrinkle happens, it could happen on both sides of that canvas. So the reconstruction work involves not only sort of fixing the wrinkle on one side, but also on the other side. So, everything went really well.
신의 천당의 고주로 천당의 되게 성 차려 성수에서 천당의 고주 천당이 등기라 그랬다. 아니 단지 디나라 좀 맞아게 revolution from fights to damage.
Can we have the other slide? So he wants to talk about the missing pieces.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That can consider and they get it more certain thing so depending on being when in our certain thing of my own. I won't sure say Castle, so some machine in our concern about the she was not anything. And six so say, I'm sure some of the Matai and Domin. A service in our was is Padang be the Pia. In a Castle, Cadu discerning them, Pacific Foggy so much is very alien, so that the model. Yet, Kishila, she was something done, can shoot. Milan from the future, July, in the farm, and then you then go down climb, and then round that Tamashi, and because the ruling Galapati was here, but in fact, come on the shed and come back, and then in every point here, you get doesn't got it, currently to get into songs, and songs are unshinera and skin. Yeah,
so as he started filling the colors and doing the work, he realized that some elements are missing from this Thangka. This Thangka depicts the 9 stages of the cultivation of shamatha, calm abiding, the single-parted meditation, and there are pieces that are necessary in this, and he realized that some of those are missing, and because this is another artist's work, he just did not want to right away change that. So he discussed this with Dharamsala and later discussed with Elizabeth. And, they reached out to the, original painter. And after, with the consent from the other artist, he was able to, add the missing elements.
And now let us survey the sushi joe day and kazi dinner and sushi again Mazan Yokala and because the launch that's on the pieces from someone joe day was a piece of San Andre and Emon someone and she for that that's really.
So it's not just the missing elements, those 5, but also he redid some of the figures in the painting, like such as the rabbit and some of the monkeys. Yes. And the reason why he did that is, this Thangka or painting should be constructed on the basis of an instruction, right? So this is a Thangka that teaches you, right, and teaches you about the different stages of, the process of the transformation of mind, and as such, it should correctly depict, how the transformation is happening. And since some of the depiction was not as per the instruction, he had to change those as well.
Now, in by the Chuda, it is Shaban to for that. Now, what do you know? What down Mamos paying about the paying with the topic there, one as a piggy reading till jets or the being because of going maybe 13, but saying and so Karala piggy column keep jetting chicken on that. Being cutters is going the anti chick half of the done. They get in someone like they didn't change it by the budget in my chick as the Canadian and the man come one chick and then change it. But I'm going to go to the thing is understanding teacher some jitters kept in. But they didn't get in my tailor. The man in wall chew that Jimba some more Chazan which you has.
So he did a major sort of reconstructive work on this, and part of the reason is the painting that was used. When you touch it, it sort of rubs off, and in order to use a painting or a color that would stick, he has to know how the canvas has been constructed in the first place, because when the canvas is made, glue is used, and he has to know how much glue has been used in making that canvas. So the process took a lot of time, right, for him to figure out how much glue has been used, what is the process of making that canvas, and then selecting sort of color based on that. And a lot of sort of redoing of the painting has happened with the clouds, the mountains, the water, the river, and so on. So all of these that is now, and the green pasture of meadow. A lot of work has gone into doing that sky. Because of damages. These tiny spots that you can see, white spots, where paint has rubbed off.
That was easy, right? Because I mean, and you sure and she Thangka she's a cheap examination or my she's changing your manage once in church of the deep because a museum now is sharing me which in the Cadin and me which is just I mean make media because it's how much cheaper man because she has a social yamling once of my watch here is build and the language so I was in the GCA in the you read is the one as a social jewel what I think the language and the enema send a good words but the Jerry in the Mongolian review queer the years in the young on one in it consider that the Satan's true do and consider Ramnet of Chip or not Ramnedi the Chitangi Ramnedi Kushozola Shubu one's a young daughters that we should turn me a one's a tablet as a child. And that they have a couple of yes, any piece of that depends on any trade music on the edition in English. Then the ramage should be in around the Sanderons and in home should the next number. And came up somewhere have you get a should any chicken that someone mean chicken meet someone from mine. Yeah, I'm just about chicken someone.
So these are, I mean, traditionally in our culture, these are religious, objects, right? Connected with, people's practices, their belief and so on. And, these are constructed in a, specific sort of process that involves rituals and so on. And, since these two scrolls are going to be displayed here for the general public, and there would be different visitors with different backgrounds, different dispositions, and so on. And these are ritual objects often used for instructive purposes, right? For instance, here, it's the cultivation of single-pointed sort of attention and awareness, and in the process, once the Thangka is drawn and constructed, it would be consecrated, right? Usually by monks and nuns, monastics. But in the absence of any monastics, then the painter, himself would consecrate that. But here at this museum, you have many geshes, Drepung Losling's abbot is here, many monastics are here. So it's his humble request for the museum to consecrate these two through that ritual, so that the deities connected with these paintings are invoked. And when people come, and for some, of course, they will be used as religious. They will be viewed as religious objects, and as such, such consecration would have, I believe, impact on them. So that's a humble request. So while the His Eminence, the Abbot of Drepung Losling Monastery, is in town, I think this is a very opportune moment.
Okay.
Thank you. That's very special. Thank you. I loved watching you paint. I was really, in particular, I was fascinated to see the mineral pigments that you used and the hunks of pigment that you brought with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about these materials and how they were sourced?
Thank 아니 같이 강게 좀 지도 모라다 뒤에 sembaga ochonsos and sempe 주시라 같이 또 트렌드 우텐데로 근데 남샤스니 저 트렌 가와니 이거에 디 컨테스트게 트렌드즈 트렌디어스
이제 트렌디 가스랑 만족이 별의 수준이랑 상실다 있는 데서는 아니 디 mira como chiqui de lo ta nos ta rin se ne ta tenda kinsagi chering on the texas with the sound on the chick say la le mai chick some tire some local to touch that while the ta ba shares me ba shares it all Chinese and the dollars la ge do in then mai di ta ba share ni da in arang ta to chi de san anzal perla in sound de ya ma di share di ba chi kasne Um,
although he is not exactly sure, but he has heard that in Tibet, the sort of the first sort of form of painting and using colors might have happened maybe 20,000 years ago. But the tradition that he is following It started perhaps in the 9th, 10th century.
Identità di cambiami me bozogi kasir sujeng tane cha kanje so yume kanye ragi yume 이게 desumolo chik kasir chazang chimin temna chi me bo komo some shares and ku kasir kadin den until kasang chik anzu chang serving chik ko ja kasir tiep ja tong de lo I ko jana anyeru mon shi che che so ye ta chi ti an sa ja kanye ragi ne da 이게 chazang chik So
generally, there are instructional manuals that talks about the different pigments, different hues, how to mix them, and so on, and also where these minerals come from. So traditionally, that's how they do it, consulting the instructional guides in creating these colors.
니 처음 차샤는 파스네단다. 저 먼저 다 그걸 장스 전 장보다 단다 뭐뭐여러 저 더빙다 방마다 땡다 비는데 저 닝디 지사 지요 배당的뭐가를 니 방마다 땡 정도 먼저 会上说这些我给因为是放的听我那在这全世界可是呀这个波波是天差异因的他们可是的这小鸡因为当时我发现的是比方你在这里面怎么跑啦在我就是一定是这个我是后来听很少的那其实看上因为呢那讲的是some guys on this cassette. Now I know the
So the artists, they use different names to identify colors. So green in Tibetan is jang, but that in the artist sort of language, it's called pangma, and these, pangma and the blue that they use, they usually come from central Tibet, from a place called Nyimo. And when he was in Tibet and when he was young, they had to actually go to the mountains to dig up these stones. So they would, carry their food, go up, climb up the mountain, and then find these places, dig up the rocks and collect these minerals that way. But now there is restriction from the government, and it has become much more difficult to acquire these minerals.
아니 저는 독도지 어디 원하는 정부에 있는 거 정부지 나오는 수시 정부가 시행한 축제 중에 들고 나 정부를 리면도 당시에 정부에 나는 원거든 뭔가 남도 어디 딱 성공하는 비전 마 실시스 이거 좀 이거 좀 추나는
So the process of gathering or collecting these minerals are quite laborious. You have to walk perhaps the whole day, and then you cannot carry much. Right, these are heavy. So you bring down a limited amount, and then you start crushing them. From one mineral stone, perhaps 10 different hues or colors can be obtained or extracted. So they break it down, perhaps from a mineral. The first color that one may get is the blue, like sky blue. So they will crush the stone.
等去讲相信生学的呢地看看去的学不了确实我的成绩可以可怕想年体力多了但是体力多的开始多的出去老多可不会
变成要得出的了，然后他给前面
出的学不了出去学什么看都全讲不好在这里那是
So they would crush it, and then in a dome that is made of stone, they would put the crushed mineral in there, and then two persons would stand, at the two end of that, and then they would continue to 做骨吧，
然后中国散到我给一度
So they have to sort of stir it the whole day, right? And then they take out the water, and that's the need they take out the water, and then the next day they add fresh water, right?
No.
And chulu
and the cut in turn jar so yaga the part that
chulu do 穿的要加油的，
出的sugar 出的 sugar 什么出的定的了turn yaga the cut the day and then
so add fresh water and leave it for overnight, and the next day when you take out the water, the first or the top layer would be one color, the finest, and then you remove that, and then okay, so that is removed, and then you add water, and then once again you stir it, right, and then leave it for a night, and the next day you get the second hue extraction.
And then that in the zero and the that jungle the that one button to changle so down the Jordan chickbody dog chick ma shifts the one put out even one putting in sushi test to as a gag wouldn't do one way
Jungle the chicken I guess
jungle and the joke to cousin poking share sushi got
So this process would go on for green pigment, go on for maybe 10, 11 times. So they get this various shade of green. So the initial one would be the greenest, and then it becomes lighter and lighter and lighter. For blue pigment, they would get about 8 different shades of blue through this process.
Well, so讲这你了，讲过这个是不是了？这里开始了，讲过的不是帮一个车什么了，他帮我听车什么了，帮我听啥什么的，讲过我不我一个的，他我对讲的了呢，后来第二个是他是这个弄这个，我嘛给破对讲的这米지금 다섯 번이 지금 하면 콜라 포트잖아요 지금 저런 거 싶고 봐 근데 직 먼저 지금 갤라 쪽에 순들이 아니면 자 매복 보면 쪽에 순들 가서 가서 방가 팀 대성을 넣어봐 미 지금 never doubt 지금 오늘 제가 지금 좀 많이 나
So this is the process in which these pigments are extracted. For green, blue, and red, right? So when you stir it or when you sort of crush it, there are particular ways in which you have to crush it. So for when you are extracting green, blue, and red, right? The way you stir it, the way you crush it, has to be in the manner in which a weak person would do that, right? So in a gentle sort of manner, you cannot, force it or use force when doing that.
아세나한테 경제의 강에서는 슉 첨부제 즉 풀어 등리체에서는 수시고 만족을 왜 되라고 요도.
Because that is because using too much force may alter the color of the pigment, and as such, you may not get the pigment that you want.
다 수시 샴바 통다 다 까부체라 아니 이 세포 망발래죠. 망발람나 단게 와와데 직도한 이름 이체가 이 까부체 아니 다시 망발가라 바블라선 다 세골고 근데 그래서 좀 미벳 같이 거
So when extracting white, yellow, and this color, kind of the reddish yellow, one has to use force to crush it and stir it.
이 너도 슉 전부 슉고 김제리 가려있으면 네 슉배드 더디 길을 그래서 먼저 또 양바는 시 첩고요.
And that is because these colors are sort of extracted from type of rocks that are similar to slate, and as such, these rocks are really hard.
네, 실제로 다티네 저는 단다 샴바요. 늑산 단도요. 이 두산 제도.
So these are the colors that you have extracted from this process.
스마트 폰은 딩딩인가 딩나. 그러면도 딩인도 되게 간에 등보를 쓰나 딩한서 매도요. 신도 매도요. 신도라나 안간서 질리기에 좀 안서 별 제마만 뭐 이런 거지. 지금까지 pomegranate 베리 나세리 저거지로 이네 베리 말이 와. 나와 시만 쉬어줘. 알아. 이체가 아니 컴퓨터에도 먼저 거 실내야 줘. 일친 거 아니 감 차서나 신내나 먼저 차명신 야 추나는 거 아니 제마만고 아니면 된다니 somebody 이까이 친구들이 일단 이거 내가 친구한테 샤서 아니 신내라가 그 감도 이전 아니
So for so that's a type of red, and for that they use herbs and plants to process that, and these are kind of berries that you have to pick from top of the mountains, and they also use flowers of peach trees, and so these are crushed, these are boiled, and then once that's boiled, they would leave the fluid in a container and let it dry, and once it has dried up, you will so you get these sort of the mixture, and you made it into balls. So the dried powder, they would roll it into these small balls or pills, and then when you need the color, you would you would dissolve it in water, and you get this color.
네 거버 비슷한 거였으나 먼저 탕가 강과 지기야 매도 티에 지 매도 인정 티에 쟁 나고 단계 직다 한다 지 타만되는 약고 당 탕가 독다게상에 차팅 종이에 나오지 매도하던 상황을 서버로 정해 지도 이표지다 예 난땅에 대해 지 얘기만 전 마양이.
And this color is used after a painting has been done, to make it fresh, to give it a fresh sort of appearance. So usually it would be used to color flowers, maybe inside the eye, and this has a characteristic of not fading away. So this color would not fade away, And as such, it gives a fresh sort of look to the painting.
먼저特别忙我这제 color 중에 없을 줄 알아. 양라션. 이 color 요런 color로서는 그 수시 저게 나고체. 그러면 그래서 제가 이나 단테비 color마로시 다원데.
So usually painters have tendency to put the brush in their mouth. And Thangka painters also have this habit. And with this color, once you mix it with saliva, it changes colors. The color would change. So that's another sort of reason not to put the brush in your mouth.
아니 장구를 땡야기다 디나시야 수여저로 신기로마. 이 신기야 먼저 슝게를 디 자가도 디스디스 도로 슝게를 면자리 면나 제감티다. 아니 디 먼저 댓글이야 정규직라 단다 디는 신체제 한 단계에서로 제라 창원산이 피니시 파스 베트디 거기서 서버로 통해하면 저한테 나랑 수여요. 로마 있어 그냥 이 면제가 와도 그냥 안주 슝게를 거든 인치나 커진다는.
And for green, they use an herb. In Tibetan, it's called shungen. The herb, or it's kind of a leaf that's used, and you can find it in the northern part of India and also in Tibet. It grows in the hills. So a similar process is used, and then once the painting is done, to make it fresh, where green is needed, this color would be used.
근데 근데 제 클래스가 빙요가 빙서단 먼저 because 먼저 빙이 될 수가 야기고 야고 할래 이는 그래서 먼저 처음에 유고 뭐 소소란 야고 나오는 이용 또 복부디 비가 안전 내가 뭐 빅고 가서 근데 다다 가서 고가산나 뒤에 이제 제가 너무 너무 내고나 산 아얀 그래서
So for pink, they use the hide of yak hide, right? And you remove the hairs first, and then boil it, extended period of time, and then extract the color that way. And you have seen that?
Yes, yeah, I got to see it yesterday. It was incredible. I think we have time for one more question. And obviously your experience is so immense and your knowledge. I'm just wondering a little bit about what your training is to get to where you are.
And that Abdi Jang said, Johnson, it's a mud. That's then.
어디가 가서 티슈 탕가스에 된 타워에는 뭐 좋아하는 뭐 기회가 없는 것이었다. 이게 티슈니까.
So to talk about my training, I think it's pertinent to talk about the tradition of Thangka, history of Thangka, and I'll briefly talk about that.
이 한가디에서 통화인 나도 그러나 그렇습니다. 지단기 그 아무님 뭐 갔을 때 진정한 양 총대를 한가이 가지 못 총대가 먹으셔. 제목이 엄마만 이게 이제 됐을 때 그렇게 못한 타다게 아고 욕심지라 욕심이 직하게는지 직 함도가 같이 얘기다 통당 항딩 때문에 너무 지에 가버려 주셔서 그래서 제목만 다 드디어 제목을 하고 뭐 가시게 지기다 당된 금식 지에 가버려 주제 아니마지 콜라 가서 다 소시시기 브라운 토나도 있어 어머니들이 한번 전부 쉬우지 그러니까 어머니 도양 받는 티도 아니 야 독시제 가서 별로 정말 레몬레 독시 링스 레몬레 우리 pomolle 하고 레몬레
That's new information for me as well. So, so the Tibetan word for drawing is ri mo, Re means mountain, Mo means female, right? And the legend has it that there was a shepherd who likes to, draw. Now I cannot use the word draw because the word has not yet been coined. So a shepherd, he just, doodles on the on the ground, and then it said that one day he had a vision of a beautiful girl or beautiful woman, and he drew that on a slate, right? And later this is known as really more the girl or the woman of the mountain, right? And from there the word, the Tibetan word really more originated.
And this is that you mentioned that of Tango Chum. And then as a Monzo, and I unit remote level because then the Pelus law, Pelus, ever teaches, Pedis law, a Kashmiri Chone, which later. Pedis, Pedicungo, Chibas Yam, the Punchidan. A pearl of Jamonga shirted it. Many Ejela, her angi, which Conserving and Jam George, and to Chugang was here to show me a bit. Brown, Jomajika, Chidanji, that Chukang was here to show me. And in it, that Ejela, Chukang Maduna, at him, and up as a Zangi, Shola, the Tishi was here, Koran Romanche, show me, Rangi, and Zanim. What is having needs to cabin tamil rank capping. That when I do Mellon yes, Mellon I the Conga the cancer chapels in Chum. When Mellon the young remote to hear the Jumzedi to Shum facility. Koran now was a Namaling Salaman Bell. Now the children want lives yet, and now it turn for them. Turn to play Langa, turn to and Jigang to spend the conversion to the that's also about 6 there. I'm not bound to measure up for around so and that the most in the one about Jamoda gets on you. Need up Penny looks at the shop is begin around Remoja Lawless and sounds of Remojam. That Coranda than the or why changing the Castle, why change the
So there are many styles of drawing Thangka in Tibet. The earliest style that came to Tibet maybe the Nepalese style, the style that came from Nepal, and also from Kashmir. That Kashmiri style also is very similar to the Nepalese style. So that may be the first sort of the style, foreign style that came to Tibet. And later on, Tibet started producing these painters and artists, who sort of developed their own style, two sort of well-known styles. Yes. Yeah. And that towards years. So these, two artists, they came from central Tibet, and two or sort of unique Tibetan styles sort of developed in the central Tibet.
And it made that's really Mara taking that and the Mellon do in say Janning Churim of Yagonde, Tawone, Tishum Combaga, Omachata, Tishum Combachata, men, that was the bottom of Chassis and Mara. That in my duty as a Tanda the ones who remove you but the chair on my Yagonde Tangan says. Now, Mellon Tishum Boogie, Messan. Now, did you ready? Was a Yagonde Tawon in Tanda chair. Indeed, President Chairman is Animara, social president. Bernard was singer song as a that Yami somewhat of them share some massage said Bernard Neda in some of the Tudor drum jigging and Jamin eats and book down at dinner. We gave out so one in the airline for one in the Sina Benjamin early out pitch Bernard Omong shows me as a Love John Cova Mel and again something then not do the word in the buff, then you get any Benjamin comes to do that more. President. 나다 중요한 카도들 가르나고 있는 지 캐싱 지 나고 당이 나야 이 공부 신체 나저 보고 말고지 소소 메리 담는 좀 정답 담아 담는 갑자기 프로시저리 뭐지 캡신이 있는 제 나는 레오마스 뭐 중심되게 그냥 잘 되게强 年轻些有点淡这强的前中意我的过度读书吧都你可能我吧不是过不到这里你对吧但没了电视给了这电视你的这个过不少的这样他把想要你这边两是钱你反正来到忙我这个两个钱吧可能两个钱就也是平常要我的办法
So the lineage that he belongs to of this Thangka tradition is called Mensar. It's originated in that central Tibet, and this style sort of this is a new form of the two styles, and it originated during the time of the first Dalai Lama. Who was responsible in setting up or founding the Tashilumbu Monastery, one of the bigger monasteries in Tibet. And it is said that this style has, that the lineage is unbroken, right, since from that time. And the way he got connected with with this is in the 1980s. Tibet had undergone huge sort of destruction sort of phase during the Cultural Revolution and years after that. And in the 80s, a number of monasteries were already been destroyed, and the condition inside Tibet was quite deplorable. The young kids, there were no schools that they could go. And the previous Panchen Lama, when he was visiting Tibet, he saw these young kids playing in the dirt, and Panchen Rinpoche thought that something must be done, to sort of educate them. And at the time, only thing that he could do was to start these schools where these young children can learn crafts. And he got the opportunity to enter a school where he could learn about Thangka painting, and from 1985 to 1996, right? He learned and also worked in reconstructing many of those temples and so on.
特别的我觉得，人家人去养些的那咱们学员去关键去拿的话，那就是呢，那可能没忙过刚才忙过去，对嘛来，提拿了刚才test是吧？刚才忙过去test了检测，安尼就开始拍个电了，就那时候开始嘞，那就电话对不对？刚才忙过去test是吧？test上安尼这。아니 자아부터 가스래 안 고주 걱정하는学到了们是吧他这样我们那把恐怕我们就知道你这样安提前了Dharamsala练了Dharamsala练你安你提前是不是이게 고주 걱정이 다 예동 중이 봐도 저 치료의 권력이 아직 보다는 거가 다가 생겨 다가도 다다바다 당가만 쉬어 시험을 이게 Thangka sound begins and Kumbhakar and get at the end of it.
So in 1995, the previous Panchen Lama passed away, and the new reincarnation was identified by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the Chinese government, they selected a boy as a reincarnation of the Panchen. So because of that, many Tibetans, of course, consider the boy that was identified by His Holiness as the true reincarnation, and as such, many people sort of suffered persecution from the government, and he was among those. And as such, he had to flee Tibet and tracked, across the border. So if there must be a panel somewhere here about that story, and came to India in 1997, and from 1997 to 2004, 2012, sorry, he worked at His Holiness's office, and did a lot of Thangkas. About 85% of the Thangkas that are displayed in His Holiness's residence and office and so on are actually painted by him. And he also traveled quite a lot within India to different monasteries and did a lot of work.
이내 예동 청년의 아무리가 내가 아무리는 이 캘리포니아가 지방비 추사제가 될 양 지방 추사하기다 직대 최대 상에 직 상마 직 공부 차상 시내 차상점 로버체 이내 마뉴얼된 뉴욕된 조뱅 뮤지엄다 다도지 마모네 직제랑 저와도 시기가 로이 뮤지엄 직 라다직 프로젝트 같이 직 버젯 나다치.
Then in 2012, he came to the U.S., first to California, where a new temple was being constructed. So he worked on that project, did everything, and after finishing that, he moved to New York and started working. His relationship with Rubin Museum started before that, but after moving to New York, every year he would do a project for the museum. So thank you so much for your attention and for coming to this event.
Buchang, it's been an honor to work with you, and we're so happy that we can have you back here during Tibet Week to speak. I think your request of the consecration is a wonderful idea, and we hope that we can facilitate that. And thank you, Sandhu, for translating